You know I'm not making it out of a video without a Benson tax. Seems like a lot of new games require a lot of new specs, and if you're like me and you have a bunch of older titles, you're more interested in what older machines can do for you. And that's what this video is about, an older machine. Now, a lot of buzz is going around the old Intel X58 chipset, and it just so happens I have a system that has an X58 chipset.
That's the one there. That one. Yeah, this one. That's the one. That one. That's the one.
Now, the X58 chipset was fun because it housed some of the original Core i7 processors, but it was also the home of a lot of server workstation processors, like some of the Xeons of its day. Now, the board I'm working with is an ASRock X58 Extreme, and it's built for overclocking. That's why it came with this nice big CPU cooler. Today, I'm going to be pairing it with a GTX 970. One of the issues I'm going to run into with testing today is going to be the error-correct SATA 2 chipsets. It just does not transfer data fast enough. But for what we need today, I think it's going to be fine. But you can see some of the lag right here with loading the data. It really lags once it tries to reload. You get those frame drops. That's all from data transfer. The other disadvantage we're going to run into today is that the RAM is throttled by the processor. So even though I got some 1333 DDR3 in there, it's going to all read as 1066. So far it's okay. This is completely playable. I'm getting minimal lag. There I am killing someone unarmed because I'm a champion. Once the round really gets going and I'm moving around, everything's loaded and everything runs. Well, there I died. But it runs good. All right, next game. This absolute banger runs just as good as you would think. Of course, GTA 5 is one of those show me a system it doesn't run on kind of situations. Of course, I have the answer. My old Athlon. I have the video right here. You can go ahead and click on it. Take a look. Click on that video. Now, this game is just as old as the X58 chipset, and I'm pretty sure when you bought this game brand new, this was the recommended chipset you would want to run it on. So, bravo here. Skyrim Special Edition. All I have to say, you're finally awake. Soul Calibur 6 is built on the same engine as Fortnite, and it's going to run as good as Fortnite. Witcher 3 is where we run into some real performance lag. You can see frames dropping left and right, and this is almost right after loading the level. As it goes on, it gets a little bit better, but it's always like you're looking at a video with a skip frame issue. Go Simulator. Say less, bruh. Yeah, this game runs on everything. Now, this game is where we really have a thinking problem. It gets real thinky and real delayed in the controls here. It just doesn't have the brain to keep up with running on this game. It just doesn't go. It gets even worse when you go inside an environment and you're trying to interact with multiple NPCs doing various things and even random effects coming out of all the characters. It just slows down to a grueling 18 frames a second. Ouch. So what's my solution to the performance problem? A Xeon X5690, top-tier Xeon workstation processor. Let's try it out. I'm running it here with some DDR3 1600, and it still reads as 1333, and that's just the processor limit. These SATA 2 numbers are just killing me here, but let's go ahead and try it anyway. Something to note is while I was installing the processor, the Fortnite server went down, and when it came back up, this OG version was up. So I went ahead and tested it with OG Fortnite. Look at it go. Mild performance improvement. Controls are definitely a lot better, but I mean, look at those laggy graphics. And it loads slow. That's that SATA that we love. And as I'm about to jump off the bus, I see the worst. Oh my gosh, I'm invisible. Why is it taking so long to load? Oh, SATA 2. Of course, GTA 5 runs a little bit better, especially in first-person mode. You get a lot more responsive controls, and I'm getting a faster frames per second rating, going all the way up to a solid 60 frames a second. Portal 2, of course, me 10 years ago would have screamed over this kind of performance. It actually is improved. It's super solid. Skyrim Special Edition, I'm getting a lot less drop frames now. This is looking really great. Soul Calibur 5, the performance level here is absolutely perfect. Witcher 3 is where we actually start seeing some performance improvements. It's Sustaining a higher average frames per second is up to 30, which means it's actually playable. Error physics are better, and what do you know? It's an actual improvement with just the CPU alone. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I'm just including this game for my own gratification. I didn't have any real reason to include it except for I just wanted to play. Now here's where we get the real increase in performance. I'm almost up to 25 frames a second, which means it's starting to get into the playable range. It's not making my CPU totally choke anymore, and my fans aren't entirely just screaming anymore. Now the X5690 is kind of the top of the list for processors for the X58 chipset. So the only thing I can imagine would be better than having one X5690 would be two X5690s. Yeah, two X5690s. And normally you'll find that in a workstation, which I told you was the other thing that these were typically used for, was workstations. And if you find one of these workstations out there in the wild, usually made by HP or Dell, they'll come with better things like SATA 3 or a UEFI BIOS, which will allow you to boot better operating systems. And I don't happen to have an HP or Dell workstation with dual CPUs just laying around. I do have a system that uses dual CPUs, but it's not a PC. It's a 2010 Mac Pro. And surprisingly, this thing could be converted into the greatest gaming PC that you've seen in years, if you like things that are only slightly sluggish and can't run RTX that well. It runs two X5690s, which is 12 cores with 24 threads. It's a proprietary build system, meaning a lot more things were built for it, and it's easier to find accessories for it 14 years on, including a SATA 3 PCI Express board that allows us to get a faster read time on an SSD. Now, setting up a Windows 10 gaming system on one of these is easier than ever nowadays. You build the Windows installation on a separate computer and drop it in. You option boot into the Mac and select the Windows partition. And once you're into Windows 10, you install Boot Camp and you set your primary booting drive as the Windows partition. And now that we got it up and running, you can see that it's running kind of rough at the beginning, but it starts smoothing out real good. I'm getting the same performance I would get out of a modern mid-range laptop, and it's performing better than my old AMD FX58, so I'm happy. Everything loads quicker. I'm getting textures showing up a lot faster than in previous versions of the build. Less drop frames are occurring, and everything is loading quicker, and occasional drop frames there, and everything is good. On GTA 5, I'm actually able to set the settings a little bit higher. We'll see how that pans out. Oh, look at that. It's working out really good. I'm getting a full 60 frames occasionally, averaging around 30 frames, 40 frames, and the performance is good. Controls are a lot less laggy. Probably be better if I play this game more often. I think Portal 2 is going to get as good as it gets. On the previous build, I'm not seeing much more performance improvement. Yeah. Skyrim Special Edition, same deal. Top tier performance, A+. Soul Calibur 5, Witcher. I'll get back to you about which game this is. Witcher is actually where you get some real performance increase. You're getting the full frames per second, 0 drop frames, good performance, and hair physics set up even higher, so now everything is almost perfect. Not quite 60 frames, but almost perfect. Goat Simulator pretty much topped out when we had one Xenon processor in here, and it's just the best you're going to get, which is honestly all you could ask for. Cyberpunk, now we're finally getting to true playable territory. It's playable and it's visually aesthetic, which is good. This is great. Everything's rendering fine without the computer screaming at me. Particle physics are great. We're not really going much above 30 frames a second, but this is absolutely playable. Now I might actually be interested in advancing the storyline. Now, who would have thought the absolute best configuration for an X58 gaming system would have been a Mac Pro 2010? I did, because I remember doing this kind of kit way back in the day, and this was a lot of fun. And the good part about these machines is you occasionally find a deal on them. And I hope you enjoyed this video. And I hope you join me next time when I either finally catch you up on the status of all my old projects, or I finally take on that Halo Edition Xbox One and see if I have enough skill to get it running. See you next time.